So in this video, I'm going to do an unboxing, setup, demo and review of a couple of products from Satochip, the Satochip card, the Seedkeeper and the Satodime. While I don't normally cover multiple products in a single video like this, the Satochip and the Seedkeeper in particular actually work best when used together. The documentation on how they do this is a bit confusing and it's much easier just to show you. In this video, I'll be using the retail version of the Satochip cards, though everything I show you will work exactly the same if you have followed my previous video on how to create these cards using the DIY process. And the last thing I'll say in terms of full transparency is I did buy a full set of the Satochip cards myself. However, Satochip underwent a fairly major rebrand since I bought these cards, and they kindly sent me out some replacements which reflect their current branding that I'll be using in this video. So let's get into it. And if you haven't already done so, hit subscribe, and that way you can stay in the loop for content I make to help you find your way in the crazy and often hostile environment that is cryptocurrency. So this is everything that I ordered from Satochip. This actually came in a separate package that I ordered a while back, but again, it just came through the regular mail, just like the smart cards themselves. That's one of the advantages with smart cards, is they can just get posted just through normal mail. And let's just open this up. Okay, so this is everything that was in the envelope. Basically, we've just got a brochure here for the 3 different products. It gives you a summary of each one, 3 RF blocking sleeves for the smart cards themselves, and a sticker. And then included a separate envelope for each of the products we're gonna have a look at. So we'll start with the Satochip. You can see here actually that the envelope has like a numbered security seal on it as well. And if we open that up, this is what's inside. So basically we have the NFC card here. So this is just the same size as any sort of standard credit card. There's really nothing to it. And let's just follow this link and see where it takes us in terms of the quick start guide. Okay, so I've got a fresh install of Windows over here, and I've just opened up the quick start guide in a browser. So we will just click Satochip. In terms of software, we have a few options. Basically, we can use the official Sparrow client. It actually supports Satochip now and has done so for a couple of months, which is great. Or we can actually use Electrum. And one thing I'll quickly add here is that Electrum does not currently support Satochip in its official releases. There is an open pull request on the Electrum GitHub to have that incorporated, but that may still be a few months off. So for now, if you want to use Electrum with your Satochip, you need to use Satochip's fork of Electrum called Electrum Satochip. And because Electrum also supports more of the security and card management features for this card, we will go with that. So we'll just download the client for Windows. So that has downloaded, and we'll just install that with all the defaults. There we go. So now we'll plug in our reader, just any USB port. There we go. So we plugged in our reader. Now we'll just run Electrum. There we go. So we'll just stick with that. So we'll just give our wallet file in Electrum a name. I'll just call it Satochip demo. You can call it anything, say next. So we're going to have standard wallet. Choose that we have a hardware device. Whoop, need to plug in the card. There we go, so let's try again. Next. There we go, so it's found our Satochip, so unnamed Satochip. We'll say next. And basically here we can set a pin. Now this pin can actually be numbers or letters or anything. Just for the sake of simplicity in this video, I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll say okay, we'll type it a second time. All right, so now we've set the pin. So now we are initializing this with a seed. So for a brand new device, we can say create BIP39 seed, and then that is the seed phrase there. Now, this is probably the spot where a number of you are rightly concerned that we are generating the seed phrase on a hot sort of internet connected device that is then being imported into the smart card. And this is exactly the same issue with the seed-based workflow that I highlighted for the Tangent wallet. And one of the reasons why this type of thing is necessary is that these kinds of smart cards don't really have the processing power to generate a seed phrase and to derive a wallet from that seed phrase in a reasonable amount of time. Never mind the fact they don't have a screen to be able to securely show it to you. Fortunately, when it comes to Satochip, you can actually use the Seedkeeper product to do this securely, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. If you don't have a Seedkeeper card and aren't interested in buying one, your options for securely initializing a Satochip card are basically to do the initialization process in an offline system running something like Tails Linux. Alternatively, I have a SeedSigner here, which has been modified to have an NFC interface, and we can also do things like go into the Satochip functions, securely import a seed onto this, and do things like enable 2FA. And I've actually got a fork of SeedSigner that is available in the description if you want to give that a go. We'll just write that down. We've written down our seed words. We'll say next. Now we have to type it back in. We'll just say next. And that is now initialized. And now we'll just create a wallet on the default native SegWit path. We can encrypt the wallet file if we like. I won't worry about it. We'll just say next. All right, and there is our wallet in Electrum. So basically here I can go in and say receive, and I can just say create request, and basically it'll show me an address or a QR code. Okay, and I've just sent some Bitcoin there, so that should show up over here in a second. There we go. So we can now see that transaction unconfirmed on here. All right, so those funds have arrived, and I'll just demonstrate what it looks like to send funds. We'll just send the funds to ourselves just for simplicity. So we'll just copy that address, paste it in there, and I'll just say max and then say pay. I'll just leave that on ETA and just set that to be really long for now, and we'll just say okay. And basically, there we can see it actually just signed and sent that transaction. So we'll say okay. And one of the things you might have just noticed there is there actually was no confirmation on the card itself, because what we are doing is called blind signing. So any time that the smart card is plugged in and it has been unlocked using the correct PIN, it will simply sign any Bitcoin transactions that are sent to it. One of the big problems with blind signing transactions is if there is malware or something malicious on your system or in your wallet software itself, it can actually tamper with the transaction and have your hardware device sign something you did not intend. And this brings us to the two-factor authentication feature of the Satochip. Basically what happens if we enable two-factor is your transaction is generated by your wallet software. It is encrypted using some information from the smart card itself and actually sent to a second independent device for you to review and approve. And only after you've approved the transaction details on this external device will the Satochip sign the transactions. And I'll just show you how it works. So if we have our wallet plugged in and connected in Electrum Satochip, we can actually go down here onto this little leaf and click on that. And that brings up the sort of wallet management menu. So this lets us do a bunch of things like, change the PIN, wipe the seed on there, enable and disable 2FA, verify that the card is genuine, and change the label. So what we're going to do is actually just say enable 2FA. This basically gives us some instructions on what we need to do, as well as a warning that we actually need that QR code to be able to do operations on the wallet once 2FA is on, and we'll just say yes. Basically, we then just need to install the Satochip 2FA app on our phone, and then we say open. And then basically what I can do is go into the Satochip 2FA app. I can say I want to scan a QR code. I'll just scan that code that's on the screen. I'll just call this Satochip demo. And then say confirm QR code, and that QR code is added. So I'll just say OK here on the desktop. 2FA is enabled. So now if I want to make a transaction in Electrum, so again, we'll just copy it and send it to ourselves. If I just paste that in there and just say pay and say OK, you'll see it says signing transaction, 2FA request sent. So basically now this won't sign anything until I approve the details over here. And if I look at that transaction and say, no, there's something wrong, I can just say reject TX. And basically this will then refuse to sign the transaction phone. Now I'll just show you something interesting in terms of change outputs. So if I make a transaction that sends less than the full amount and say pay and go into the preview screen, you can actually see that it shows us the input, that's the funds we're putting into the transaction, and the two outputs with the yellow one highlighted as change. Whereas if I say sign here in Electrum, the thing you'll notice is that while Electrum knows which outputs are our change outputs and which ones are not, our 2FA app doesn't. And that's the reason why over here on the 2FA app, we actually see two outputs, whereas most hardware wallets on their screen will identify which is your change output and actually not show you that output when you're confirming the transaction. It's not really a problem per se, but it's important that you understand why the information that you are seeing on this sort of confirmation screen is different to what you might see on a different hardware wallet. And it's also an important reminder that this device doesn't offer any receive address verification at all. And if you do want to be able to double check the receive addresses or change addresses, you're going to need a separate watch-only wallet to do that. And I run through how to set those up in this video here. And the other thing about 2FA is it's not just for transactions. So any actions on the card itself, like changing the PIN, resetting the seed, or anything like that also requires a 2FA confirmation. So for example, if I go to reset the seed on this card, basically it gives me the warning there that I'm going to wipe the seed. So don't ever do this without a working backup. And I'll say OK. So we can see 2FA request sent. And if we look over here on the phone, we also have to approve this reset action. So I'll say approve TX. And then we'll see over here in a minute, this card will be reset. There we go. Flashed red, device reset successfully. So there we go. So this card now still has a PIN that has been set, but there is no longer a seed on here. The 2FA feature they have here is a clever way that you can use a low-cost device like the Satochip with hardware you already have, like your Android smartphone, to be able to get better security than you would get with blind signing without the extra cost associated with a device that has a dedicated screen. So the next one I want to look at is the Seedkeeper. It comes in the same package that the Satochip came in. Basically, we just have the smart card itself. So we go back to the same Getting Started page, and this time we'll click through Seedkeeper. And basically there is only one option here. So this is the Seedkeeper app for desktop. So we'll download the client for Windows. We'll say yes, keep that. Keep anyway. Plug our card into the reader. And now we'll open the Seedkeeper tool that we just downloaded. So basically when we set up a new card, it takes us through this workflow here where we have to enter a new PIN. So again, I'll just use 1, 2, 3, 4 for the sake of simplicity. I can always change it later. And we don't have to give it a label, but I'll just call it Seedkeeper Demo and say submit. So this is the Seedkeeper tool. And most of these items are pretty self-explanatory. You know, we can import different types of seeds that we want to store on the device itself. We can then export them once they're on there. We can also make secure encrypted backups. We can list all the secrets. But the thing I want to look at here actually is how to generate a secret on card. So basically what's going to happen here is we are going to generate a master seed and we're going to say submit. And basically what we can do here is choose the length of the master seed we're going to generate. Now I'm going to select a 64-byte master seed, and I'll just call this Satochip demo seed. In terms of export rights, we can choose to either have it be visible as plain text just in the Seedkeeper app, or we can actually generate something that can only be exported from this card in an encrypted format, meaning that you can't simply display it in the Seedkeeper app. I'm just going to choose export in plain text allowed because I want to actually show you what this secret is and how you can recover using this kind of secret. So we can say success, it has generated the secret, and there is the fingerprint. The process then for importing that secret onto one of these actually requires a bit of juggling, but I'll just run through it now. So first we remove the Seedkeeper card, and then we insert and unlock our Satochip card. And you'll notice that once the Satochip is unlocked, you'll get a pop-up here that says an authentic key is being imported. Now we unplug that, we plug the Seedkeeper in, we enter the pin for the Seedkeeper again. And basically what we're going to do now is we're going to say import a secret, and we actually want to import an authentic key from the trust store. So if I say submit, it shows us the trust store. So what is in there here is the authentic key from this card. So we'll just choose that and we'll call that Satochip. We can call it anything and we'll just say submit. And basically what's happened is it has now imported the public key from this card onto this card. And we'll say okay. Now, if I say export secret, I can actually choose the master seed that we created before, and I can choose to encrypt it using that authentic key. So if I say export, what I get now is an encrypted secret, which basically just looks like this. So I can actually just copy that to my clipboard, say close. I can unplug the Seedkeeper, and I can then plug in the Satochip, put in the pin, submit, and I can import a secret. I'm going to do a secure import from JSON, say submit, and then I can paste that encrypted master key from the Seedkeeper that I just exported and say import. There we go. So the following authentic key has been found in the trust store, Seedkeeper demo. Continue import using this authentic key. So basically that's asking us whether to use the public key from this card to allow this one to decrypt that secret. We will say yes, and there we go. We choose the secret and say submit, and there we go. Successfully imported master seed to Satochip. So now this Satochip actually has been securely seeded using a seed generated on this Seedkeeper. So this Seedkeeper is now our backup of this card. And it's worth saying that the same process of encrypted exports and imports can also be used to securely make multiple backups of your master seed that are spread across multiple Seedkeeper cards. The one thing that is slightly different from a seed-based wallet is the recovery process if you were to lose this card and try to recover the seed from this device just using software-based tools. And I'll just quickly show you how to do that now, and I'll help you understand what this master key is that we have generated. Now, if I go to export a secret and choose the master seed, and just choose to export that in plain text, basically what you can see here is we get a bunch of hexadecimal characters. So for example, if we head over to Ian Coleman's BIP39 tool and actually paste this master seed into the BIP39 seed field, select BIP84, you'll actually see we get all the same addresses here that we get in Electrum. Now, it's important to say you should never need to do this as part of the normal operation of your Seedkeeper or Satochip wallet. However, I thought it was important to demonstrate that one of the key advantages of the Seedkeeper when compared to something like the Tangent wallet that I reviewed over here is the Seedkeeper does not have vendor lock-in. Whereas if you're using something like Tangent, your backups live on the cards and on the cards only, and there is no way to export them or to use them with other wallet software. And that is simply not the case with the Seedkeeper. In that it allows you to have the advantage of digital storage, it allows you to have the advantage of being able to securely set up a Satochip, but does not lock you in to the sort of Satochip ecosystem for your wallet. You have an existing seed that you want to store on the card, select a mnemonic seed. I can basically just use the seed I generated before, so we'll call this demo. I'll choose a BIP39 mnemonic, and I'll say I already have my mnemonic. I'll just enter the words here. The other thing that's important to say while I'm here is that if you want to add a BIP39 passphrase to use with a Satochip, you actually have to do this when you initialize the card. The reason for that is the derivation from seed words plus passphrase to a Masterkey, which this Satochip can use, happens on your system, meaning the passphrase is baked in and can't be changed later. So I won't worry about a passphrase on this one, and I'll just say submit. And we can see it's actually imported two things. So it's imported both the mnemonic and a master seed. The thing to be really clear about is, just like with the Satochip, entering your seed phrase in onto your computer so it can be saved to the card isn't great unless you're doing it in like a secure offline environment like Tails Linux. Alternatively, we can also connect our smart card reader to a modified build of SeedSigner and use the SeedSigner to securely generate the seed that we then store on the Seedkeeper. And we also can have the ability to load these seeds back onto the SeedSigner from the Seedkeeper if we want. And just quickly looking at the other things we can do in the Seedkeeper app, we can then export them once they're on there. We can also make secure encrypted backups. We can list all the secrets. We can also just click about and actually verify the card and make sure that it is genuine. The last thing I'll point out in terms of the Seedkeeper is if you go into the list secret screen, you'll notice there's actually no ability on here to delete any of the secrets that you have imported onto this device. Once they're on there for good. You can store, I think around 20 to 30 secrets on here, but again, just don't go over the top importing lots of test secrets and things like that. And the last thing I'll show you is the Satodime. This one will be pretty quick because it's pretty straightforward. So we just open it up. It's the same as the others in terms of the packaging. This one actually works with our mobile right now. So we can actually just say install the Satodime app, and we can say open. And basically then, if your phone has NFC, we can actually just tap our phone to the card. Now it'll initiate an ownership transfer for the very first time because only the owner of the card can actually do operations like create slots that you can put private keys in and to unseal them as well. So the key difference with this Satodime is it is not something that is intended for long-term storage of funds. The whole idea with this is that you use it to securely create a private key on the card itself. You then send funds to that card and then hand the card to a person. There are no backups. So basically we would tap the card onto our phone, and what we then have is 3 different key slots. So there's 3 different private keys that we can generate on this device to store different things. So we would just click here and we want to seal the key slots. So that will generate a private key on card, and basically then we can send funds to that address. And the whole point then is that that private key remains a secret on this card, and only when someone wants to redeem that, so to click on this button here and to unseal that key slot, are you able to actually view the private key of this wallet that you would basically then just import into some other hot wallet or sweep using something like Electrum. Basically the whole idea is that you can verify that the address that you are receiving funds to has actually never had its private key seen by someone else. And rather than reuse slots that have already had their private key revealed, you can basically click on that thing and reset this back to a blank slot, which will completely wipe that private key. So if you hit reset and there's still funds on that address, they are unrecoverably lost. We can just say reset, and then you'll see it basically wipes that address and takes it back to the same state that it was in when we first started. There we go. So we'll say yes, and there we go. So you can see that that first slot now has been wiped and is blank again, ready to be initialized if we want to reuse it. If, for example, I were to send some funds to that wallet and someone wanted to verify that balance themselves, they can actually just tap that onto their own phone. It will show them the balance. If they're not the owner of the card, they actually can't do things like unseal the key slot because they are not the owner. And any operations they try and do, won't work. To let someone else redeem those funds, basically the person who is the owner has to initiate a card transfer, which then puts the card in a state that someone else can accept its ownership. So now that I'm the owner, I'm able to do things like unseal that private key slot. Now, the one thing that's very important to understand with these Satodime cards is that transfer behavior works very differently depending on how you are connecting to the card. So basically, the transfer mechanism works between NFC devices, but if you are connecting the card via a hardwired connection, you can actually force an ownership transfer at any time without the owner having sort of relinquished their ownership of the card. Basically, it's a recovery mechanism so that if someone hands you one of these cards, you can always reclaim the ownership for it, while at the same time, someone who just happens to tap with their phone can't just claim the ownership and drain all the funds off it. The other thing you're going to want to do is actually just check that the card is actually authentic. And this is one of those times where someone just giving you a DIY card is really something that probably should not be trusted. So there you go. That pretty much covers everything from Satochip. And again, these are devices that you can either buy at retail, like I've demonstrated in this video here, or you can just DIY yourself. One of the key things also to keep in mind with the retail devices is there are no firmware upgrades for these devices, meaning that however they work when you get them, that is it. There will be no additional functionality added later. Though again, when you consider the drama with Ledger Recover over the last 12 months, that might also be seen by some as a good thing. The key thing though is that these products are also continuing to be available at a very accessible price point. So the idea of having to buy a new one some point down the track is certainly much less of an issue when you're only paying $25 or something like that for one of these cards in the first place. For devices like the Satochip, there certainly are some trade-offs in terms of functionality that come with this low price tag. But again, that said, I do think the Satochip plus Seedkeeper combination together is actually a really novel solution that allows you to have smart card based seed backup or multiple backups on multiple smart cards without the vendor lock-in that very often goes with this kind of product with pretty much everything else in the market. In terms of software support, things are still quite sparse at the moment, both on desktop and especially on mobile, though hopefully that will improve next year as they prioritize their mobile app development and make it much easier to be able to use a lot of this functionality just with the smartphone you already have rather than needing to buy a dedicated smart card reader. I'll also continue to share updates over the next little while about integration between Seedkeeper and SeedSigner because I think there's a really good use case for using those two things together there. And once that's proof of concept is done, I'll also be looking at how this can be added to other projects like Crux and things like that, but that will be a bit more work. I've also added onto the hardware wallet feature comparison section of my website, and you can see it does quite well for a device like this. If we click through to the more detailed feature breakdown, you can see that's very heavily influenced by the privacy score and the auditability score, which is what you'd expect for an open source device like this. And the security score here definitely also takes into consideration the fact that you can use things like 2FA and the Seedkeeper to be able to boost the security of the device. Never mind the fact that it also supports a lot of other advanced features like multi-sig, as well as getting good points for the physical hardware security, device verification, and so on. And if you think any of these Satochip products can help boost the security of your setup and want to help me on the process, I'll put an affiliate link in the description. The Satochip team are very active on their Telegram group, so that's a really great place to go if you have any questions about the devices, or if you have any experiences with the device you'd like to share, or any questions about it in particular, just leave a reply in the comments section. I do my best to reply to all of them. Thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful. Hit like if you think that other people would find this video useful, and hit subscribe if you'd like to be kept in the loop about future content I make that helps people stay safe in the crypto space and to recover if they get into trouble. If you have any questions about this video or a topic that you'd like me to cover, just leave a reply.